For a long time, camera gear only made small improvements from year to year. You got some new features when buying something new, but most of the time these didn't make a huge difference. Over the past 2 years that has changed though. Cameras, computers, drones, lenses, lights and microphones have improved to a degree that makes them actually future-proof, or they at least became accessible to more people. But I think many people still haven't realized what has changed and why a lot of the gear that you buy in 2022 will likely last you a long time, so let's get into it, and at the end of the video I will also do a little what's in my camera bag. Let's start with cameras, or to be more precise, hybrid cameras. Here we've seen big improvements over the past 2 years, which mostly affect the mid-range market between $1,500 and $4,000, but also cinematographers got many more options below $10,000. The two biggest camera improvements in this price range are definitely the addition of 10-bit and high resolution such as 4K, 5K, 6K and up, and it seems like all cameras that come out right now, at least in this price range, have these additions, and this is actually huge. 10-bit is really important because it gives you a much easier color grading workflow and lets you use the full dynamic range of your camera for video by shooting in log. You can also do that in 8-bit, but it's a lot more likely that your image falls apart during the color grade, what needs a lot of tweaking and therefore takes up more time. That alone brings mid-range hybrid cameras a lot closer to professional cameras. When it comes to resolutions, the world still hasn't fully adapted to 4K or even higher, as most videos are still being watched in 1080p or lower, but that changes more and more, and 4K or up is also better to have more flexibility in the edit. Sometimes I even crop my 4K footage to up to 200% on a 4K timeline to add animations and stuff like that, and it still looks perfectly usable, so even 5 years I don't expect that you really need an 8K camera to edit your videos, especially considering file sizes. Great is also that many of these cameras feature higher frame rates in these higher resolutions, such as 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second, because that also gives you more flexibility in the edit when it comes to adding slow motion. In addition to that, there are also many other features such as good autofocus, high dynamic range and good low light capabilities that on these newer cameras are really on a level where you don't really need more. And when it comes to professional features such as waveform monitors and ProRes recording, all of these cameras feature some sort of HDMI port that adds these features via external recorders such as the Atomos Ninja V. Therefore, I think that 2022 is a good time to buy a camera for videography. And to mention some specific cameras that I would recommend, which are actually quite a lot, because I'm not a fanboy, even if some of you guys say that. There is at first the Fujifilm X-T4, which is a really good camera if you're on a budget. Then there's of course all the Sony cameras, especially the a7 IV and the a7S III, and also the Panasonic full frame cameras. They are all good, and especially Panasonic S5 is also good if you're on a budget, because that also comes slightly below $2,000, but also the Panasonic GH5 Mark II and GH6. I didn't use them by myself, I used the original GH5 before, but they also look really good. And also not to forget here Canon R5 and R6. These are also good cameras, just suffer a little bit from overheating, but if your videos are generally not that long, then they are also perfectly fine. Of course, all of those cameras have their strengths and weaknesses, so definitely do your own research before you buy any of those to figure out if it fits your needs and your budget. Great is also that cinematographers now have many impressive and quite affordable options with cameras such as the Red Komodo, the Sony FX6 and FX3, also Canon R5C and C70, and especially the Ronin 4D with the integrated gimbal. That looks really good. Then there's also Zcam and Blackmagic, of course, which also give really affordable options for cinematographers. So overall, I think that with all these options available right now, it doesn't matter if you're a cinematographer or a usual content creator, you will absolutely find something that suits your needs for many years. But a camera alone doesn't make a video. You also need to edit it, and preferably on a fast computer. Now, I think that many people still don't understand what is going on in the computer world right now, especially for us video editors, and I specifically talk about Apple here. Maybe you're not into Apple, I totally understand that, but hear me out. You've likely noticed that Apple brought out these new M1 chips, unless you're sleeping under a rock, and let's be honest, it is just hard to believe that such low-powered laptop chips can give you desktop-level video editing performance. I totally get that. But the thing with these chips is that they use a completely different and more efficient architecture, plus they also have more optimizations that are especially good for video editing, such as the media encoders and the neural engine. And these optimizations basically take a lot of the load away from the graphics card and the CPU, which makes your computer a lot faster. Additionally, Apple cuts out many bottlenecks with their unique chip design. For example, when you look at Windows computers, there the graphics card and the CPU use different data formats, and that means that if the CPU wants to send something to the GPU, it has to translate the data first and copy it into the graphics RAM, and all of that takes time. The M1 chip, in contrast, doesn't have that. There the CPU and the GPU use the exact same data format, and there is this unified memory, so both of those components can just grab whatever data they need without any time wasted. Also, the bandwidths are multiple times faster as on most Windows machines, so there's less delay for all the components to receive the data they need. Just imagine a one-lane road jammed with lots of traffic and then the same amount of traffic on a 4-lane road. It's clear on which road you will get faster to your destination, and that's exactly the same with these chips. Okay, enough technical talk here. To keep it short, these chips are just insanely fast for things like video editing, graphic design and music production, etc. But for other tasks such as heavy 3D rendering and so on, Windows still has the edge. I've personally used the M1 MacBook Air, the 24-inch iMac, and now the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip, and to be honest, I was happy with all of them, and I am. And I would actually say that even the M1 chip that you find in the Mac Mini, the MacBook Air and the 13-inch MacBook Pro is totally fine for most beginner video editors and even a bit more advanced stuff, and you won't find anything comparable performance-wise for video editing in those price ranges. The M1 Pro, M1 Max and M1 Ultra chips are definitely on another level, especially when it comes to price, but from using the M1 Max now in my MacBook Pro for around 4 months, I can also say that it's absolutely worth paying a bit more for it, because that will definitely last for a very long time. Both the timeline performance and the render times are insanely fast, and it can even edit 8K footage, so I have no doubt that these chips will easily last for 5 years. I mean, even today I still see people around using their MacBooks from 2014 or even earlier, and when I now look at this insane performance from the M1 chips, especially the M1 Max, I think that we reached another point now where the improvements that we will see over the next few years won't translate to an actually big difference in your video editing performance, and that's why I think that it's safe right now to invest in a Mac or a MacBook. And of course, we video creators love drones, and here basically the same things count as for cameras. You can already get a 5K 10-bit drone for around $1,000, the DJI Air 2S. I used it for a long time, and I can only say that it's really hard to believe that you get this set of features for such a small price. But I think you know the DJI Air 2S already. If not, I made a review here in the corner, just check that out. If you need even more power though, there's also the Mavic 3 with pretty good dynamic range and 5K 10-bit 422. It's more expensive, but from my experience, the lowest price version with only one battery is already enough for many people, thanks to the long flight time. So we got great improvements in the drone market as well, and I would wonder if the footage that you get from these two drones at least would not be enough for the next 3 to 5 years. A market that has seen less improvements but better prices and a few nice additions is the lens market. With companies such as Viltrox, Sigma, Tamron and Samyang producing lenses with decent image quality and very usable autofocus, lenses have become accessible to a wider audience. That does not only count for the price but also for the size and weight, what I find pretty important because I like to travel with my gear. There are also a few new lens options that haven't really been there before, and that is the Tamron 35 to 150mm f2 to 2.8. Kind of replaces a few prime lenses, that's always welcome, and the Tamron 11 to 20mm f2.8 for APS-C cameras, which could be a game changer, especially if it comes out for the Fujifilm system. So there are no huge changes when it comes to lenses overall, but the cheaper prices make it a bit easier, especially for beginners, to get into photography and videography. Though I would say that it still makes sense to invest in higher quality and more expensive glass, because lenses usually last very long, like easily 10 years or more when you treat them well, and they also keep their value, so if you change systems in the future, you can always sell them and you still get good value out of it. And there's also another piece of gear which lasts nearly as long as lenses when you treat them well, which are microphones. And when it comes to microphones and audio, that was always a pain in the butt when I started out, and there were not so good microphones available like it is today, because there I had many issues with the audio then. And actually one of the biggest issue got solved with this microphone here, the Sony ECM B1M microphone, because this microphone here does not need a cable. It just works via the hot shoe mount on your Sony camera. That's great because I had it quite often that the cable was maybe not fully plugged in, maybe slightly bit out, less than a millimeter or so, which you don't see. Then you come home and you see that you don't have audio and you can re-record everything. So this microphone is what I use all the time outside just because of that. But even if I really love this microphone, I would not recommend it as your first microphone as a video creator, because this microphone is not that flexible. You can really only use it on your Sony camera, and it's also super expensive. Instead, I would recommend the Rode VideoMic NT-G at first, which you're hearing right now, because this is so flexible that you can literally use it for everything. Like right now I use it here boomed above my head. Then you can also use it as an on-camera shotgun microphone, so same as the ECM B1M microphone, and you can also connect it to your computer for voiceover recording, podcasting, live streams and so on. So that's the most flexible microphone, and it also comes with all these filters, which is super good, because a problem that I have here in this room is that I have a Rode around 300 meters away or so, and it is not really noisy, but there is a little bit of bassy motor noise coming in sometimes, which got picked up by microphones easily. And with the low cut filter in the VideoMic NT-G, I can instantly solve that. You don't hear any motor noise here, which is really good. This is really my favorite microphone overall. If I would start out as a video creator right now, then I would buy this one. Or if I wouldn't be on that budget, I would probably get the little brother, the Rode VideoMic Go 2, I think, because that is quite similar, a little bit smaller and a little bit less functionality if it's not connected to your computer, but if it's connected to your computer also. These microphones also have safety channels, so in case your audio recording was a little bit too loud, you still have a bit quieter audio on another channel, so you don't have clipping or anything like that. And this is really where the microphone manufacturers worked on a lot over recent years, just making it easier for video creators to record audio error-free, like really making it safe, because as mentioned before, there were lots of problems before. Then of course there are not only shotgun microphones as I was talking about, now there's also wireless microphones. Wireless? Did I really say wireless? Of course, I mean lavalier microphones, not wireless microphones, but today you could actually say wireless microphones because they are like wireless plus a lavalier microphone. Generally, we don't really only use a lavalier mic anymore. But anyway, when I started out recording videos, we only used lavalier mics directly plugged into our phones, and then we had to sync the audio later in post, which was one step extra, unnecessary time wasted. I didn't like that at all. But today you have all the wireless systems from Rode, the Wireless Go and Go 2, from Saramonic, the Blink 500, or here from DJI, the new DJI mic, which is my favorite from all of them, mostly because of the usability, but it also sounds really good from my initial testing. But I used the Rode versions before, and also Saramonic, and these are mics that I can also recommend. So the market also has changed a lot, and these filters that I mentioned before are also included in some of those microphones, not all. It's included in the DJI mic and the Wireless Go 2, I think, as far as I remember. I think the first Go not. Yeah, just do your research there. Yeah, it makes everything so much easier because you have the audio directly in your camera. You don't need to sync it in post anymore, which is great. So yeah, this is why I think that also microphones are absolutely worth buying right now. Last for a very long time. Many great options. You will definitely find something good. They're also in different price ranges. And now I actually talked a lot already about gear that I use, but it's not all. So I would say let's do the what's in my bag. Okay, I would say let's start with the bag itself, and that is the Wanted Provoke 31 liter bag. Must say it was super expensive, but I think it was worth it. First because of the material that is really good. It also looks really good. Also because of the support, I recently lost one of those chest straps here, or one of those, like the one, there's only one included. And I wanted support to get a new one, and they just sent me one for free without asking for anything, just the shipping, of course I had to pay that. Really nice service, and this is not sponsored, I paid the full price for it. But obviously it has all the stuff that I really need from a bag, which is mostly the camera compartments, but then also the roll top here. So if I go for a weekend trip or a bit longer, then I can fit all my clothes in the top. That's especially good if I go with a motorbike in the mountains here, which I often do here in northern Thailand. And inside at first we find my main camera, the Sony a7S III. Also use the Sony a7 IV, which films me right now. And the lenses that I use the most are the 28-75 from Tamron and the 17-28 also from Tamron. The 28-75 is usually on my a7S III, so it fits nicely in here, while I usually have the a7 IV with the 17-28 lens here at the top, because that's a little bit smaller, there's not that much space, so that fits better with this smaller lens. And I really enjoy the 17-28mm lens because it is so small, it is so light, it's really good for vlogging actually. I would say when it comes to vlogging, let's directly talk about my new tripod. This is the PJI-TECH Mantis Pod. Also not sponsored. I know lots of YouTubers are sponsored from PJI-TECH for this one, but no, bought it by myself, and it replaces my GorillaPod, because GorillaPod is like always you have to fold it and then it doesn't fit nicely and so on. I just didn't enjoy the experience with it. You can just put it always on a table, you can grab it like that, then it's just perfect for vlogging. Comes with all these features here to adjust camera angle quickly. I like this tripod. It's also super lightweight, so that's what I usually have with me if that was my light again. Really that quick? And when it comes to my drone, I use the Mavic 3. I only got the cheapest combo, as I already mentioned before. It's just good. I want to have a lot of dynamic range if I film in the mountains, so that I see a nice sunset, but I also see a lot of detail in the mountains. Then it's important for me. Then always on there, AirPods Pro. A bit more special is my charger when I carry my MacBook around, and also to charge all my other devices. This is from Ugreen, the 100-watt charger here. Also not sponsored. Nothing is sponsored here, by the way. And this charger, it charges with 100 watts, so it can fast charge my 14-inch MacBook Pro. And it also comes with 3 USB Type-C ports and 1 USB Type-A port. Honestly, I don't want to use USB Type-A anymore. That's why I bought this one. I only use USB Type-A really for charging my Apple Watch. Yeah, aside from that, I always use the USB-C ports, and I'm really happy with that because I can charge all my devices only with this one plug. Then I use the Peak Design capture clip here together with this, I don't know how to call it. It's to mount it on your belt mount properly. So you can just attach it here on your belt, and then you can plug in your camera with your quick release plate like that, and you can easily carry your camera everywhere. And of course my ECM B1M microphone. And here I usually bring my Viltrox 24mm 1.8. Got this for free, but I'm not sponsored to make this video. I already made my review about this lens. But this lens, I really like the look of it. 24mm f1.8, it's great for vlogging. Plus you can get lots of other shots with it. It always looks really nice. And it also has a little bit of vignette, what I really like. I already mentioned that in other videos. Like organic vignette coming from the lens is always a bit differently than adding it in post. And then I also use certain filters. I recently switched to the Nisi True Color Variable ND filters, which are this one here. Already made a sponsored video about that, but this video here I'm not paid to do it. I have to mention that quite often. What's nice about them is that they don't add a color shift to your image, so that makes white balancing on the go a lot easier. Here is usually where I bring my filter. I also have some filter from Freewell still in there for if I want to make my image a little bit darker, and also to add mist effect and so on. So that's what it's good for too. And light again. And yeah, then just camera strap like the usual stuff. I have some cables inside here Here, right now I don't have them because my batteries are charging. I was recording quite a lot today, but here I usually have my charged batteries, and here I put in my empty batteries so that I always know which are empty, which I have to charge. And here I have my DJI Action 2. It kind of replaced my GoPro Hero 10. Image quality is not as good as with the GoPro, but it's a lot more flexible, especially when it comes to FPV flying and so on. That's why I prefer the DJI Action 2. And yeah, the rest just some cables, lens caps, like the usual stuff that you need on the go. I usually put my AirPods Pro here as well, just to show you how everything looks inside. Here I have my Mavic 3, A7S III here usually my A7 IV. Filters and the capture clip. Here is my ECM B1M microphone, and under it the 24mm 1.8. Here's my controller from the Mavic 3. So yeah, here's my charger, so everything sorted well. I don't always have the same setup, like it depends a bit when I go out, like where do I go and what shots I want to get. So sometimes, for example, especially when I don't bring my drone, I might bring the 135mm G Master lens. I really love this lens. The bokeh is really nice. It is super sharp. It's one of the sharpest lenses out there. Autofocus works great, and if I want to get 200mm 2.8 look, I just use it on an A7 IV and APS-C crop, and that basically gives me this look. So super nice lens. Then also when I go hiking and I want to be a bit more flexible with my lenses, I usually only bring one camera, drone of course, but then I bring these Samyang lenses here, the 75mm f1.8 and the 35mm f1.8, because these lenses both weigh I think less than 200 grams. They are super light. Of course, they don't have the best build quality, but if I just want to go on a hiking trip and I really want to travel light, then these lenses are great. What I also sometimes bring, but not always, is the Crane M2S here. I don't film that much with gimbals, to be honest, but when I know I want to get some shots with a gimbal, then I bring that one. So I just want something small, lightweight, easy to use, especially fast to use, because I really don't enjoy setting up gimbals. So this one is the best in my opinion. Of course the M3 also if you want to have a bit bigger setups, but usually I use it with the Samyang lenses or the Viltrox 24mm, and it works perfectly fine. And I also recently got the iPad mini here, which I really like. I sometimes use it as a camera monitor with the Monitor Plus app. Today I actually used it a lot to read my script and then talk in the camera. So far, really nice experience. It's also good if you use it with an adapter to quickly transfer files on the go from an SD card reader to your SSD drive, an external one. Like internally I only have 64 gigs, so it doesn't really make sense then. But yeah, for that also great, or also for LumaFusion if you already want to make a quick edit that you can then export to Final Cut and there do all the effects and color grading and so on. So overall I'm very happy with this device. I think for videographers it can make a lot of sense to get the mini instead of some bigger iPads, because it's never the same experience as with your MacBook. So that's what's in my camera bag, and if you're in the process right now of finding out what camera you should get for video, then check out this video here. There I tell you all the major cameras right now and their advantages and disadvantages, so you know better what camera to buy. Hope this video was helpful. If yes, then also leave me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I see you in the next one. Transition and now the microphone falls. I need a bit more stable setup. Oh.